The day Amara Vance signed her name on the marriage papers, her hands trembled so badly the pen scratched through the page like a scream trying to escape. Outside the courthouse, the sun shone mercilessly bright, as if mocking her fate, as if daring her to pretend this was anything but the end of her life as she knew it. She wasn't marrying for love. She wasn't even marrying for hope. She was marrying because she had no choice left. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unexpected miracles, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Echoes the Stories. You never know which story might change your heart. Amara had grown up in a house filled with quiet disappointments. Her father had once been a proud businessman, but a series of poor decisions and bad luck had reduced him to a desperate man clinging to dignity. Debts piled up like storm clouds, and creditors circled like vultures. When her father fell ill, the pressure became unbearable. There was only one solution offered, a proposal that felt more like a transaction than a promise. The man's name was Cale Drennan. A widower. A single father. A man whispered about in the neighborhood as someone who barely made ends meet, raising his young daughter alone in a modest, aging home. No one envied his life. No one understood why he would agree to marry a stranger. But the deal was simple. Cale would pay off Amara's father's debts completely, and in return, Amara would become his wife. Standing beside him in the courthouse, Amara didn't look at Cale. She couldn't. She expected to feel resentment, maybe even anger, but what surprised her most was the overwhelming numbness. This wasn't her life anymore. It was something she was stepping into, like an actor walking onto a stage without knowing the script. Cale, on the other hand, stood calm and composed. There was something quiet about him, not weak, not broken, but controlled. His clothes were simple, his posture steady. When he finally spoke after the ceremony, his voice was low and respectful. He told her she didn't have to be afraid. He told her he wouldn't force anything on her. He told her she could take her time. Amara didn't believe him. The drive to his home felt longer than it was. The roads grew narrower, the buildings older. When they arrived, the house looked exactly like she imagined, small, worn, but clean. Not the home of a man who could change someone's life overnight. Inside, she met his daughter, Leora. The girl was no older than 6, with soft curls framing her face and eyes that carried a strange mixture of innocence and quiet understanding. She looked at Amara not with suspicion, but with a fragile hope, as if she had been waiting for someone like her to arrive. That look broke something inside Amara. The first few weeks were uncomfortable in ways she couldn't explain. Cale kept his distance, respecting her space more than she expected. He spent his days working, though she never quite understood what he did, and his evenings were devoted entirely to Leora. He cooked, he cleaned, he told stories before bedtime. There was a gentleness in him that didn't match the image she had built in her mind. But Amara remained guarded. She watched everything closely. She noticed how Cale left early in the morning but returned at unpredictable hours. She noticed the occasional phone calls he took in private, speaking in a tone that was far more authoritative than anything she had heard before. She noticed the way people in the neighborhood treated him, with a quiet respect that didn't quite make sense for a poor man. Still, she told herself it didn't matter. This wasn't her life. It was temporary. It had to be. Yet slowly, something began to change. It started with small moments. Leora reaching for her hand while walking. Cale leaving a cup of tea outside her door when he noticed she hadn't eaten. The way the house began to feel less like a place she was trapped in and more like a place that was trying, in its own quiet way, to welcome her. One afternoon, while cleaning, Amara stumbled upon a locked room. It wasn't large, but it stood out because it was the only part of the house that felt deliberately hidden. Her curiosity gnawed at her. She tried the handle. Locked. That night, she asked Cale about it. He didn't get angry. He didn't even seem surprised. He simply told her it was a workspace, nothing important, and gently asked her to trust him. His calmness unsettled her more than any defensive reaction would have. Trust him? How could she trust a man she barely knew? Days turned into weeks, and the distance between them began to shrink, not dramatically, but in subtle, almost unnoticeable ways. Amara found herself laughing at Leora's stories. She found herself sitting at the dinner table longer than necessary. She even found herself watching Kale sometimes, trying to understand him. There was something he was hiding. She could feel it. The truth revealed itself on a day that began like any other. Kale had left early, and Leora was at school. Amara was alone when a sleek black car pulled up outside the house. It didn't belong in that neighborhood. Two men stepped out, dressed in sharp suits, their presence immediately commanding attention. They knocked on the door, and when Amara opened it, they asked for Kale. She told them he wasn't home. They exchanged a glance before one of them spoke again, this time with a tone that carried weight. They said they were here regarding urgent business matters. They said it couldn't wait. Confusion turned into unease. Before Amara could respond, Kale's voice came from behind them. He had returned without her noticing. The moment he stepped forward, everything changed. His posture straightened, his expression hardened, and the quiet, reserved man she had come to know seemed to disappear. In his place stood someone else entirely. He spoke to the men in a tone she had never heard before, firm, commanding, undeniable. They addressed him with respect, almost deference. They spoke about companies, investments, decisions that affected thousands of people. Words like board, shares, and global filled the air, each one tightening the knot of confusion in Amara's chest. And then it hit her. Kale wasn't poor. Not even close. He was something else entirely. Something far bigger than she could comprehend. Later that evening, when the house was quiet and Leora was asleep, Amara confronted him. She demanded answers, her voice shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Kale didn't deny it. He told her everything. He told her about the empire he had built, about the wealth he had accumulated over the years. He told her how, after losing his wife, he had stepped away from that world, choosing instead to live quietly, focusing on raising his daughter away from the noise and pressure of his former life. He told her he had kept his identity hidden because he wanted something real. He wanted a life that wasn't defined by money or power. And when he learned about her situation, he saw an opportunity not just to help, but to build something genuine. Amara felt the ground beneath her shift. Everything she thought she knew was a lie. But somehow, it didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like revelation. The man she had judged, the life she had resisted, it wasn't what she thought it was. It was something deeper. Something real. Still, she struggled. Trust doesn't come easily when it's built on a foundation of secrets. Days passed, and Amara found herself caught between two worlds, the one she had believed in and the one that was now unfolding before her. She saw Kale differently now, but she also saw his loneliness, his quiet strength, his unwavering devotion to Leora. And slowly, her walls began to fall. She started to understand that wealth didn't define him. It never had. The man she had come to know, the one who made tea for her, who cared for his daughter with endless patience, who gave her space when she needed it, that was the real Kale. Not the billionaire. Not the powerful figure. Just Kale. Their relationship began to shift, not suddenly, but steadily. Conversations grew longer. Silences became comfortable. And somewhere along the way, Amara realized she was no longer counting the days until she could leave. She wasn't trapped anymore. She was choosing to stay. The true test came when Kale was called back into his old world. A crisis threatened everything he had built, and he had to step in. The quiet life they had created was at risk of being consumed by the very thing he had tried to escape. Amara had a choice. She could walk away, return to a life where everything was simple, predictable. Or she could stand beside him. She chose him. Standing in a room filled with powerful figures, Amara felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. But she didn't falter. She spoke with a strength she didn't know she possessed, offering insights, challenging decisions, proving that she wasn't just someone who had been saved, she was someone who could stand on her own. Kale watched her, and for the first time, he saw not just a partner, but an equal. That moment changed everything. The crisis passed. The world settled. And when they returned home, the house felt different, not because it had changed, but because they had. What started as a forced marriage had become something neither of them expected. Love. Real, unshakable love. And if this story has touched your heart in any way, take a moment to like, share, and comment. Your support helps these stories reach others who might need them. Before we end, tell us in the comments, do you believe love can grow from the most unexpected beginnings? Because sometimes, the life we resist the most turns out to be the one that saves us. Amara once believed her story had ended the day she signed those papers. But in truth, that was the day it finally began.